there's a lot of specifics that were talked about yesterday at the general session. To talk about some of those and what your mission is in putting together a program like that.
Well, I think some of the key parts of this convention, and it's a short convention. It's not a really long, drawn-out 4 or 5 day process. We're basically a day and a half, day and 3/4 of meetings, and so we're focused hard on the things that matter most. I think the one that came out of it, for me anyway, was that we've got the tools now with companies we've aligned ourselves in consulting. They have financial capability so they can go in and take a look at your books and benchmark all of your existing results, help you to determine where you should be playing. And it's not to say we weren't doing benchmarking before, but now we have the tools and the consultants to actually have them execute that. And in some of the cases, we just have a new member that just signed with us in the East, and they're actually here with us this week. They have an existing business doing very well in their market, yet they wanted to set up that structure a little bit tighter. So they solicited the consultants that we use. They're in there building a structure for their existing company so that they can now step into the role at Big Bob's and do it seamlessly and make sure they don't cannibalize their existing operation. I think for a lot of folks out there that are looking possibly to expand and maybe even consider somebody like Big Bob's or the value play, they're concerned, well, what happens with my moneymaker? What happens with where I butter my bread now? I don't want to, take my eyes or focus off that. How would I be able to make this transition? And the answer is we have these people in place to help you build a structure, to help you and implement people across your network so that you don't lose on your existing side to help you expand. That's the challenge with any expansion in business. You got to say, okay, I've done all this. Now, how do I keep this running and expand and move forward? And, a lot of folks do it successfully, but you got to do it profitably, and you got to do it so that it's not too much burden on your staff.
Well, it's a big step, really, to go from being hands-on in one organization to overseeing 2 organizations. It's a big step.
Sure. I mean, anytime I remember probably the biggest challenge in business I ever had was taking our existing business, which was a family-run business. We had developed it and we had expanded it and increased the volume of it over several years, and we were excited. But now we wanted a different niche in the market, and that's when I looked into Big Bob's. And when I opened my first Big Bob store, now I'm juggling, my existing business with that one. And we did it successfully, but it took some time to understand, and I would have loved to have the knowledge that some of these folks here presenting now to know how to do it and transition a little bit easier. So we've got that tool available to us now, and I think it's you can't put a value on it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, you were talking about benchmarking, and you've also got the tools that allow you to look into the minutia of the business and see what the problems are and fix them right now, as opposed to wait till the end of the month when the old way.
Well, yeah, that and the fact that, another thing you want to, everything is about people. It's about who you're attracting, how you're training them, what level of expertise they have when they come to you. And really, it starts at the leadership. So I was talking quickly, and I think we mentioned it on the last interview you and I did on Floor Radio, was there's a book called Multipliers. And Multipliers talks about creating, taking leaders and having them realize how to create the very best out of their organization and get the very best of their intelligence from all of their staff and harness it. Not only that, but put these people in the positions, or what we would call the right seats on the bus, to drive the organization forward, never being fearful of moving them to a position that's bettering them, and even sometimes out of the organization, because that level of leadership attracts the best people all over the industry, and they're going to want to work for that company, and that's how you accelerate. I mean, no one person can drive a company forward beyond the limits of 24 hours a day. You need great people around you, and if you're smart, you get better people than yourself, and you lead them to greatness. Let them become what they can.
Let me ask you about the basic cash and carry kind of concept. It seems like it's morphed over time. I mean, not just Big Bob's, but people that walk in the front door of a cash and carry operation seem to me to be different now than they were before the recession.
Well, I think that's indicative of the fact that years ago, when the cash and carry business really started, it was primarily carpet and vinyl. And that customer who we lost initially to the big box stores, they started to play heavy in that space. We realized that we needed to service that customer and have a niche to be able to operate against them, which is where Big Bob's and other value plays would submit their business. Then what happens is you get the hard surface business comes to town, right? And it's a huge, in fact, a majority portion of most people's businesses today. And a lot of those items can be installed by the owner, by the homeowner, by the contractor. So tile, wood, laminate, LVP, carpet tiles. Those can all be put down by someone who understands how to use a ruler and a bucket of glue to a point where carpet and vinyl were much harder to install, especially vinyl, that nobody wanted to tackle that. So that's where the cash and carry business got an uptick, purely because the product lineups changed and they're diversified so far across the industry. And now you've got people wanting to do it themselves. So that just, I mean, it presents an opportunity for a customer now to want to walk into a location like you and I would have walked into a distributor or manufacturer's location to buy product. Now they're buying from equally similar scenarios.
So it really changes everything. I mean, the people, I picture the old days, somebody driving up in a pickup truck more. Well, you can't even say that anymore because you got, $80,000 pickup trucks. But somebody looking for low-end product, and certainly that's not the case. So your advertising, your in-store exposure, everything is now changed.
It has, and that's where the invention of the Costco's and the others we've talked about have surfaced. I mean, think about it. 20 years ago, those big box sort of warehousey stores were not in existence to the average person. Every mom and dad were not members of a warehouse where they went and bought their groceries and every other thing. So it's become the norm now to buy not only your pallets of tile and your LVP and your laminate off of a pallet, but you're buying your food that way. You got a pallet of Cheerios, you got a pallet of rice, you've got a pallet of tomatoes in a can. It's the craziest thing, and that's what we've morphed into, and that's what's created this environment, this value environment.
Now, just to wind up, I know that you're talking about 2032 would be the time that you would hit these numbers that you talked about, the 250 stores. It seems like you're on a trajectory to enjoy, 250 stores, but a whole lot more stores, a whole lot faster than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a possibility. Many organizations have hundreds and hundreds of stores throughout the country. It's a big land. We feel that it'll take a fewer than most because typically the customer who is shopping for a value will travel a distance to get that value. So we don't need to be quite as close to each other in markets. I mean, if it works in highly populated areas, areas like the Northeast or Dallas or Phoenix as we go forward, understandably so. But for the most part, in the secondary and tertiary markets where we kind of live and breathe, people will drive that extra 10, 15, 20 miles to get a deal. And so we feel like larger territories with enough stores to capitalize on that territory is the right move for the owner. They can use their existing infrastructures, whether they have an existing operation already or they build one in their Big Bob's corral, if you will. And at the end of the day, the idea is profitability. Be able to service your market, be as effective and efficient as you can, and drop as much, net profit should not be a dirty word in the flooring business. And I know throughout the recession, many people suffered a negative or no net profit cycle. But even in the good days, our traditional net profits in our industry are low. And that's just not right. People who invest their life savings and put their heart and soul into a business like this and buy real estate and do everything that's necessary to create a great life for them and their children beyond deserve to make a net profit because net profit fuels more growth and expansion.
Do you think a lot of your members, even members that have been here for quite some time, are more inclined to add stores, say, than they were 5-10 years ago?
Yes, I think for a couple reasons. One, it takes more stores, it takes more locations and territory expansion to make a living these days. What used to be a little business, my dad had a store and my mom had a store behind our house. We had a 5-car garage turned into a carpet store to the rear of our 2-family house that we lived in. It didn't have a bathroom in it. We used to have people go into our house and use the bathroom if they needed. It was very intimate. They'd get coffee. They'd get banana bread from my mom. It was a different day. And in those days, my father could do $250,000 in business a year and make a really nice profit. I mean, live really well. You can't do that today. You have to have lots of overhead or lots of locations and lots of media presence because you're dealing with big, big competitors. And in order to play that game, you have to have a lot of locations. So at the end of the day, you've got to be able to create something that you can put that many locations out there and manage it, which is where the systems and the business in a box comes into play. Without that, no matter how good you are, eventually, as I said before, you tap out at 24 hours a day and you can't do any more.
Well, the real key here is, as you mentioned, bottom line. What are we taking home? And, of course, that seems to get everybody's attention.
Yeah, I mean, I've consulted for many businesses as well. I do a lot of speaking and training and that type of thing, and I love to do that. That's my passion. As you can see, this is what I like to do. But at the end of the day, I would meet with a lot of owners, and the first thing they would tell me is how big their volume was. And I'd say, that's great. How much are you keeping? and the silence, and not because they're bad guys. They never thought of it that way. We're driving towards volume. Let's drive towards making profit and securing the ability to expand beyond our limitations, and then harness it with the best people, with the best systems, and you've got a winning combination. I don't care what industry you're in.
That's the key, systems and really getting your head into the business and why are we here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we tout the fast food guys and all that, and although they don't finish on the top 10 list of consumer being happy buying there, the fast food industry has created a system whereby they do one thing really well, and that's driving net profit. And what do they do with that net profit? They buy real estate. So if you think McDonald's is in the hamburger business, they're in the real estate business. That's their ultimate goal.
Well, congratulations on a good convention and a really jacked up group here. And it's always fun being here.
Thank you, sir. I always appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot. We've been talking with Scott Perron. Scott is the president of Big Bob's Flooring Outlet. We are in Kansas City at their 21st annual convention. This is Talk Floor TV.